Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every person's journey when they must take a hard look at their relationships and ask, who is holding me back? While it's easy to point fingers at external circumstances, sometimes the people we choose to keep close are the very ones preventing us from reaching our full potential. Today, I want to share with you 5 types of people you should consider cutting out of your life. These are the individuals who undermine your growth, keep you stuck in mediocrity, or lead you down paths that will never serve your best interests. The first group you must be wary of is those who enable your bad habits. These are the people who encourage you to procrastinate, to indulge in distractions, or to avoid responsibility. They are comfortable with your stagnation because it maintains the status quo. In some twisted way, their comfort depends on your failure to change. They may not actively wish for your downfall, but they certainly don't mind if you stay stuck in your vices. These are the people who say, "It's okay, just relax, you deserve a break," when you know full well that taking that break will only set you back. If you want to evolve, you must distance yourself from those who are content with you remaining exactly where you are. Next, we have the victims. These individuals are consumed by their own narratives of victimhood. Everything that happens to them is someone else's fault. They carry the weight of the world on their shoulders and ask for your sympathy at every turn. The problem with these people is that their mindset of perpetual victimhood never leads to action. They will never take responsibility for their lives, and they will drag you down with them. If you spend too much time around people who always see themselves as victims, you will start to believe that your own challenges are insurmountable. This kind of thinking creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where your life remains stuck in a cycle of helplessness. The third type of person to avoid is the manipulator. These are the people who will use your emotions, your kindness, and your vulnerabilities to control or exploit you for their own benefit. They will smile to your face and stab you in the back when you're not looking. They thrive on power and will make you feel guilty for setting boundaries, questioning your self-worth when you try to assert yourself. Manipulators are poison to your mental health and peace of mind. You cannot build trust or any kind of meaningful relationship with someone who constantly seeks to manipulate you. Cut them out, because in the end, they will never have your best interests at heart. Then there are the cynics. These people are infected with a poison of negativity. No matter how great an idea or opportunity is, they will always have a reason why it won't work. They believe that the world is a dark and hostile place, and they will do everything in their power to convince you of it. While there is a time and place for healthy skepticism, there's a fine line between caution and paralysis. Cynics will stifle your ambition and drain your optimism until all you see is the worst in every situation. They are the people who will tell you, "Don't bother. It's not worth it." But if you want to achieve anything meaningful, you must get rid of those who believe in the inevitability of failure. Perhaps one of the most critical groups to remove from your life are those who don't respect boundaries. People who invade your privacy, who disrespect your time, your energy, and your personal space are a silent cancer to your well-being. Respecting boundaries is fundamental to maintaining a healthy relationship. If someone constantly disregards your boundaries emotionally, physically, or mentally, they are signaling that they don't see you as a separate, valuable individual. They will eat away at your sense of self-respect and erode your ability to protect your own peace. Don't allow people to walk all over you. Protect your boundaries, and the right people will respect them. Another group you need to cut out are the dishonest people in your life. These are the ones who lie to your face, manipulate the truth, and refuse to take responsibility for their actions. Whether it's small, white lies or large-scale deceit, dishonesty breeds distrust. Without trust, relationships are meaningless. If someone consistently lies or deceives you, they are slowly eroding the foundation of your connection. Your ability to thrive, to build, to grow depends on trust. And if you allow people into your life who compromise that trust, you will never feel secure or stable. It's better to be alone than surrounded by those who cannot be trusted. We've all encountered the energy vampires, the people who suck the life out of you without ever giving anything in return. They demand your time, your attention, your emotional energy, and in return, they offer nothing but more demands. These individuals leave you feeling exhausted, drained, and emotionally depleted. They create an unbalanced dynamic where you are constantly giving but never receiving. These people are not capable of healthy reciprocity. Their emotional needs will always come before yours. If you want to grow, if you want to live a life of purpose and fulfillment, you need to rid yourself of energy vampires who drain you without contributing anything positive in return. Finally, you must be wary of the complacent people in your life. These are the people who are fine with mediocrity. They resist change, avoid growth, and are perfectly content with settling for what they have. Complacency is contagious, and if you surround yourself with people who have no ambition, no desire to improve, you will find yourself falling into the same pattern. You will start to believe that there's no point in striving for more, that everything is just fine as it is. But in life, fine is never enough. The complacent will anchor you down in the quicksand of mediocrity. The people who enable your bad habits are often the hardest to recognize, especially when they are close to you. They might be friends, family members, or coworkers who, despite their best intentions, provide you with the validation or excuses that allow you to avoid confronting your own weaknesses. These individuals may not be malicious or intentionally trying to harm you, but their actions can have a subtle yet profound effect on your personal growth. Enabling bad habits doesn't always take the form of direct encouragement. Sometimes it's the absence of challenge or accountability. For example, imagine you're trying to break free from a cycle of procrastination. You've recognized that your tendency to delay important tasks is preventing you from reaching your goals, yet there are those around you who casually accept your delays as normal. They might say things like, "Don't worry about it, you'll get it done eventually." Or, "Everyone gets a little lazy now and then. It's okay to take a break." While these words seem comforting at first, they do nothing to push you toward improvement. Instead, they reinforce the very behavior you need to overcome. The problem with enablers is that they provide a kind of false comfort. They allow you to remain in your comfort zone, even when you know deep down that you're not living up to your potential. They act as a safety net, making it easier to avoid the discomfort that comes with personal growth. Every time you make excuses for your bad habits, whether it's procrastination, overeating, or addiction, they enable you to stay trapped in a cycle of inaction. The absence of challenge or confrontation makes it easier to ignore the harsh reality that you are not improving. They provide the reassurance you crave, but ironically, it is this reassurance that keeps you stuck. Another form of enabling comes when these people subtly reinforce your unhealthy coping mechanisms. If you're someone who drinks to cope with stress or emotional pain, an enabler might justify your behavior with phrases like, "You've had a tough week, you deserve to unwind." Or, "We all need a release every now and then." While these statements may seem supportive, they fail to address the underlying issue, the need to confront and process stress in healthier ways. Instead of encouraging you to find more constructive ways to deal with your emotions, they provide you with a free pass to continue avoiding responsibility for your actions. This allows you to mask the problem rather than fix it. The enabler's role can sometimes be subtle because their intentions are not always malicious. They may genuinely believe that they are helping you or showing you kindness. However, kindness is not always the right response when it comes to personal growth. True kindness involves challenging others to become the best version of themselves, which sometimes means having the difficult conversation that forces someone to confront their shortcomings. When people enable your bad habits, they are doing you a disservice whether they realize it or not. By letting you avoid discomfort, they are preventing you from learning the valuable lesson that growth requires struggle, discipline, and, most importantly, personal responsibility. Enablers can create an environment where you feel secure in staying the same. Their behavior can lull you into a false sense of normalcy, making it easier to ignore the fact that you are not progressing. In some cases, these people may even justify their own bad habits by encouraging yours, creating a cycle of stagnation that becomes difficult to break. By enabling your negative behavior, they rob you of the opportunity to learn how to overcome obstacles and develop the strength needed to face life's challenges head-on. Ultimately, the key to personal growth is recognizing when others are enabling your bad habits and taking the responsibility to cut those influences out of your life. It's not always easy, especially when the enablers are people you care about. But if you want to move forward, you must be willing to create a space where growth can thrive, a space that's free from excuses, distractions, and the comfort of complacency. True friends, family, and allies will not enable your bad habits, but will challenge you to confront them, forcing you to take responsibility for your actions and grow from the experience. The victims of life are individuals who constantly see themselves as the unfortunate recipients of external circumstances beyond their control. They live in a state of perpetual grievance, blaming the world around them for their suffering. These people rarely, if ever, take responsibility for their own actions or the role they play in their current situations. Their lives are defined by a sense of powerlessness, and they make no attempt to alter the course of their existence, instead waiting for someone or something else to change. While it's true that life can sometimes throw us into difficult situations, the victim mindset is a deeply destructive way of thinking that holds individuals back from growth. When you're around people with a victim mentality, it's easy to become infected by their worldview. They pull you into their cycle of negativity, painting everything with the brush of fate, luck, or bad timing. Conversations with them are often centered around complaints about how things have never worked out for them, how the system is rigged, or how they never seem to catch a break. They live in a world of if only and why me. And because they see themselves as victims, they are often unable to see the opportunities that lie in their own hands. Being around people who constantly see themselves as victims can cause you to question your own circumstances. They often act as though their failures are a result of forces completely beyond their control, and they want you to believe the same. The effect this has on you is insidious. Instead of motivating you to overcome your challenges, the victim mentality encourages a passive acceptance of whatever life throws your way. You begin to believe that your success or failure is primarily determined by outside factors, whether it's your upbringing, your environment, or your luck, rather than your own actions. The victim mindset teaches you that there's no point in striving for improvement because the world is simply too stacked against you. Victims are often trapped in a narrative of their own making, one in which they are powerless and helpless. They don't ask themselves, what can I do to change, or how can I improve my situation? Instead, they ask, why do these things always happen to me? Their lives are defined by their inability to take responsibility, and they will never move forward because they don't see any reason to. The victim mentality thrives on self-pity, and while this can provide temporary relief from discomfort, it's a cycle that breeds stagnation and bitterness. The effect that being around victims can have on your own life is significant. Over time, their defeatist attitude seeps into your own thinking. You might begin to make excuses for your own lack of progress, telling yourself that your circumstances are just too difficult to overcome, that you don't have enough time, resources, or opportunities. In essence, you start to internalize the idea that the world is out to get you, and you become just as passive and helpless as the victims themselves. But here's the reality: life will never change unless you do. The victims in your life may have their own reasons for clinging to this mindset, but you cannot afford to hold on to their beliefs. If you want to grow, you must take full responsibility for your own actions and circumstances, regardless of how difficult they may seem. You must recognize that while life is full of challenges, it is your response to those challenges that defines your success or failure. By cutting out the victims in your life, those who live in a world of endless excuses and blame, you create the space necessary for growth and self-improvement. It's important to recognize that cutting out victims doesn't mean abandoning compassion. Everyone faces difficult circumstances, and there is value in supporting those who are actively working to improve their lives. However, the key distinction here is whether the person is genuinely trying to better their situation or if they are simply complaining without taking any meaningful action. If they are stuck in a cycle of blame and passivity, their influence on you will inevitably hinder your own progress. You must choose to distance yourself from the constant negativity and victimhood, focusing instead on building relationships with individuals who are actively taking responsibility for their lives and working to overcome their own challenges. Manipulators are the kind of people who use others for their own gain, often without regard for the other person's well-being. These individuals possess an uncanny ability to twist situations, control emotions, and deceive others into fulfilling their needs or desires, all while masking their true intentions. Manipulation can come in many forms. It might be as subtle as making you feel guilty for taking time for yourself, or as overt as lying to get what they want. The key characteristic of manipulators is their ability to use others' weaknesses, vulnerabilities, and desires against them, subtly creating a dynamic where they hold the power and the other person feels trapped. Manipulation is dangerous because it is often difficult to detect in its early stages. A manipulator is skilled at wearing a mask of charm, often presenting themselves as kind, caring, and supportive. At first, they may appear to be helpful or even generous. However, over time, it becomes clear that their kindness comes with strings attached. They may perform favors or show interest in your well-being, but these actions are motivated not by genuine care, but by a desire for control. They will seek to establish a pattern of dependency so that you feel obligated to return the favor when they call in their debt, often at the expense of your own needs or priorities. One of the most common tactics manipulators use is emotional blackmail. They will use your feelings against you, manipulating your emotions to get what they want. For example, they might make you feel guilty for saying no, making you believe that if you don't do what they ask, you are being selfish or unkind. They will often play on your empathy, knowing that you don't want to hurt others or disappoint them. If you give in, they'll repeat this cycle, conditioning you to believe that you are responsible for their happiness or well-being. In this way, manipulation erodes your ability to set healthy boundaries, as you begin to feel obligated to cater to their needs at the cost of your own. Manipulators can also distort the truth to achieve their ends. They will twist facts, selectively omit details, or outright lie to make themselves appear as the victim, or to make you seem unreasonable. This gaslighting technique is meant to confuse and destabilize you, causing you to second-guess your own perception of events. Over time, this creates a dynamic where you begin to doubt yourself and your decisions, and the manipulator gains control over your thoughts and actions. They may even make you believe that you're the one causing problems or acting irrationally, when in reality they are the ones undermining your sense of reality. Another form of manipulation is when people use your desires against you. A manipulator might understand your aspirations or weaknesses and exploit them to their advantage. If you're someone who craves approval, they will offer it only when you give them what they want. If you seek validation, they will withhold it until they have extracted something from you. They play on your insecurities, using your desire for love, acceptance, or success as leverage to manipulate you into doing things you wouldn't otherwise agree to. The longer you remain in their orbit, the more you become entangled in their web of control. The problem with manipulators is that they often disguise their actions with just enough plausibility to make their behavior seem harmless. They will act as though they are only looking out for your best interests, or that they are simply asking for a small favor. Yet these small favors, once granted, become the building blocks of a much larger and more controlling relationship. Over time, you might find yourself bending over backward to meet their needs, always putting them first and ignoring your own needs, because you are made to feel responsible for their happiness. Being surrounded by manipulators can erode your self-confidence and self-worth. Their actions can make you feel as though you are constantly in a state of obligation, never free to make your own decisions without considering their desires. You may feel guilty for taking time for yourself or for saying no, and the weight of their constant demands will drain your energy and emotional resources. In the end, manipulators don't care about you as an individual, they only care about what they can extract from you to further their own goals. To break free from the hold of manipulators, you must first recognize their behavior for what it is. Understanding the tactics they use, guilt-tripping, gaslighting, playing on your insecurities, is the first step in protecting yourself. Once you identify manipulation, you can set clear boundaries and no longer tolerate behavior that undermines your sense of autonomy. This may involve distancing yourself from the manipulator or confronting them directly about their actions. Cutting out manipulators from your life is crucial for maintaining your mental and emotional well-being, and it allows you to take control of your own narrative instead of being controlled by someone else. Cynics and pessimists are individuals whose worldview is shaped by suspicion and distrust, and their outlook on life is colored by the belief that things will always go wrong. They have a deep-seated skepticism about the intentions of others and the potential for positive outcomes. A cynic believes that most people act out of self-interest, that systems are rigged, and that good things rarely happen to anyone who deserves them. Pessimists, on the other hand, approach every situation with a deep sense of doubt and foreboding, expecting failure before success. Their negativity becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, creating an atmosphere where they cannot see the opportunities that might be available to them or to others. The problem with cynics and pessimists is that their view of the world is often infectious. When you spend time with them, their negativity can seep into your own thoughts, subtly altering the way you see the world around you. They cast a shadow over your aspirations, dismissing your dreams and hopes as naive or unrealistic. They are quick to point out the flaws and risks in any plan, offering nothing but obstacles and reasons why things won't work out. For someone who is trying to take a leap of faith, start a new project, or pursue a new opportunity, the cynic's constant barrage of doubt can be incredibly discouraging. One of the most damaging aspects of cynicism and pessimism is that it can sap your motivation. When you are around people who are constantly predicting failure, it becomes harder to maintain the belief that success is possible. The cynic will tell you that it's all been tried before and that it's never worked out, while the pessimist will remind you that things are more likely to go wrong than right. They do this not out of malice, but because of their own limited view of what's possible. They've been burned in the past or have come to believe that the world is inherently flawed, and they project that belief onto others. Spending time with cynics can make you start to doubt yourself and your abilities. Instead of feeling empowered to take risks and make bold decisions, you start to become more cautious and hesitant, questioning whether you should even try. Every time you hear their warnings and negativity, it chips away at your confidence. The more time you spend in their company, the more you internalize their perspective, and you begin to see failure as inevitable rather than as a possibility you can overcome. Cynicism doesn't just affect how you see the world, it can ultimately dictate how you act in it, holding you back from reaching for higher goals and pushing yourself to achieve more. Furthermore, cynics often fail to recognize the importance of optimism and hope in creating meaningful change. While caution and realism have their place, the ability to dream, to look beyond the immediate obstacles, is what drives innovation and progress. Pessimism leads to inaction, while cynicism fuels a belief that things are hopeless. So why bother trying? It's a mindset that stifles growth, both personal and societal. Without optimism, it becomes impossible to see solutions or to imagine how things could be different. When you are surrounded by people who cannot fathom success or improvement, it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain the drive to pursue your own goals. Being around cynics and pessimists also affects the way you engage with others. Cynical people tend to assume the worst in others' intentions, believing that everyone has an ulterior motive or is out to deceive them. This suspicion undermines the potential for trust and collaboration, two essential components of any healthy relationship. When you constantly expect others to fail or act out of self-interest, you rob yourself of the opportunity to build meaningful connections with people who genuinely want to help and support you. The pessimist, in their focus on the negative, is often unable to see the good in others, perpetuating a cycle of isolation and misunderstanding. The truth is that negativity has a tangible impact on your life. It affects your mental and emotional well-being and distorts your view of reality. When you adopt the mindset of a cynic or a pessimist, you limit your potential by closing yourself off to possibilities. You make decisions based on fear rather than hope, and you become trapped in a self-imposed cage of doubt and uncertainty. As long as you remain in the company of those who cannot see the potential for good in the world, it will be difficult for you to achieve anything meaningful. To counteract this, you need to surround yourself with people who encourage your ambitions, who believe in the possibility of success, and who inspire you to take risks and challenge yourself. Optimists don't ignore reality, they recognize that obstacles exist, but they focus on finding solutions. They understand that setbacks are part of the process of growth, and they are willing to keep pushing forward even when the road gets tough. The power of optimism and positivity lies not in blind faith, but in the ability to see beyond immediate challenges and to envision a future that is better than the present. This mindset will push you toward action and success, rather than retreating into cynicism and pessimism. Toxic individuals are those whose presence in your life consistently drains your energy and emotional well-being. They are characterized by behaviors that undermine your mental health, often through manipulation, negativity, or destructive patterns of communication. Unlike those who may simply have bad days or struggle with their own issues, toxic people engage in patterns of behavior that create lasting harm and leave you feeling exhausted, depleted, and diminished. They can be difficult to identify because their toxicity is often disguised behind the facade of being close friends, family, or colleagues, but their negative influence is undeniable and pervasive. One of the most common traits of toxic individuals is their constant need to be the center of attention. They demand emotional energy from those around them, seeking validation, sympathy, or admiration. Their needs come before anyone else's, and they have little regard for how their behavior impacts others. This self-centeredness often manifests as constant drama, where they create chaos or stir up conflict just to keep the spotlight on themselves. When you're around these people, you often feel as though your own concerns, emotions, and needs are secondary to theirs, and no matter how much you give, it is never enough. The result is that you are left feeling emotionally drained as you try to satisfy their insatiable demand for attention. Toxic individuals often thrive on creating conflict and tension in their relationships. They are skilled at manipulating situations to their advantage, pitting people against each other, and causing discord in otherwise stable environments. They can be passive-aggressive, using subtle insults or criticisms to provoke reactions in others. At other times, they may outright attack others, throwing blame, guilt, or shame to manipulate emotions and create a sense of helplessness. The consistent negativity they bring into interactions erodes trust and leaves you questioning your own worth. Even small exchanges with them can leave you feeling unsettled and confused, wondering if you've somehow been at fault or misinterpreted their actions. Another hallmark of toxic people is their refusal to take responsibility for their actions. They often project their issues onto others, blaming everyone but themselves for the problems they face. If something goes wrong, they are quick to point fingers, often targeting those closest to them. This externalization of blame prevents them from ever addressing their own shortcomings, which only perpetuates their destructive behavior. They rarely apologize or own up to their mistakes, and even when they do, their apologies are typically insincere, aiming more at placating the situation rather than fostering true reconciliation. By never taking accountability for their actions, toxic individuals ensure that the people around them are left holding the emotional burden of their behavior. The relationship with a toxic person often becomes a one-sided exchange, where you are expected to continuously give, support, and invest in them, but they rarely reciprocate. They may say the right things in the moment, offering empty promises of change or expressing fleeting gratitude, but their actions speak louder than words. Their behavior rarely shifts, and even if they do make changes, they are often short-lived, returning to their toxic ways once the immediate crisis passes. This cycle of empty gestures, followed by inevitable disappointment, leaves you feeling hopeless, trapped in a relationship that drains your energy without offering anything in return. Toxic individuals also have a remarkable ability to diminish your self-esteem over time. Their criticisms, negative feedback, and passive-aggressive behavior chip away at your confidence, causing you to doubt your abilities and your worth. When they belittle your accomplishments, question your decisions, or undermine your values, it can leave you feeling isolated, as if you are constantly walking on eggshells. You start to second-guess your own judgments and begin to internalize their negativity, eventually doubting yourself in areas of your life where you once felt secure. The longer you allow these individuals to remain in your life, the harder it becomes to trust yourself and your instincts. Being in the presence of toxic individuals can create an environment where your emotional health suffers. Over time, the cumulative effect of their behavior can lead to anxiety, depression, and a general sense of being overwhelmed. Because these individuals often manipulate situations to make you feel guilty or responsible for their unhappiness, it becomes harder to extricate yourself from the relationship. You might find yourself questioning whether you are being too sensitive or overreacting, but the truth is that toxicity in relationships is a serious issue that cannot be ignored. No matter how much you care about these individuals or how long you've known them, their behavior is ultimately detrimental to your mental and emotional well-being. To protect your mental health and reclaim your emotional stability, it's crucial to identify toxic individuals and set boundaries that allow you to distance yourself from their negative influence. This might involve cutting them out of your life completely, or it could mean establishing strict boundaries around what kind of behavior you will tolerate. It's important to remember that you are not responsible for their actions, and you do not need to keep giving to someone who refuses to give back. By freeing yourself from toxic relationships, you create the space needed for positive, supportive connections that nurture your growth and well-being. Toxic people will always try to keep you in a cycle of negativity, but you have the power to break free and prioritize your own mental health. Narcissists are individuals who are excessively preoccupied with their own self-importance, seeking constant admiration, validation, and attention from others. Their need for admiration can be insatiable, and they often have an inflated sense of superiority, believing they are entitled to special treatment. Narcissists operate with a self-centered worldview where their desires, feelings, and needs take precedence over everyone else's. This can make them exceptionally draining to be around because their relationships are built on a foundation of self-interest rather than genuine care or mutual respect. One of the most prominent characteristics of narcissists is their inability to empathize with others. They struggle to understand or care about the emotions and experiences of the people around them. This lack of empathy means they are often indifferent to the pain or needs of others, even if those around them are struggling. In a relationship with a narcissist, you may feel as though your feelings and needs are irrelevant or secondary, as their focus is entirely on their own self-image and desires. If you are going through a difficult time, a narcissist is likely to dismiss your concerns or make the conversation all about themselves. This emotional neglect can leave you feeling isolated, unsupported, and emotionally drained. Another hallmark of narcissism is a tendency to manipulate and exploit others. Narcissists are skilled at using people to fulfill their own needs or advance their own agendas, often without regard for the other person's well-being. They may charm, flatter, or deceive you to get what they want. And once they have achieved their objective, they may show little to no appreciation or acknowledgement. The relationship becomes transactional, where you are merely a means to an end. This kind of manipulation can be subtle, making it difficult to recognize at first. Over time, however, the toll it takes on you becomes more apparent as you realize you are being used rather than valued for who you are. Narcissists also have a tendency to gaslight others, which is a psychological manipulation tactic aimed at making someone doubt their own perceptions and reality. They may distort facts, lie, or deny things they have said or done, leading you to question your own memories or understanding of situations. This can create confusion and self-doubt, making it even harder to stand up for yourself or assert your needs. Narcissists are adept at creating a narrative where they are always the victim or the hero, and everyone else is either the villain or a passive character in their story. By doing so, they manipulate your sense of reality to ensure they remain in control and in the position of power. When you are around a narcissist, you may also experience what is known as love bombing in the early stages of a relationship. A narcissist may overwhelm you with excessive praise, flattery, and affection, making you feel incredibly special and important. This is a strategy designed to create an emotional attachment, ensuring that you become dependent on their approval and attention. Once they have you hooked, however, the attention may wane and you might find yourself struggling to get the same level of affection or validation. The shift can be subtle at first, but eventually you realize you are constantly trying to win back their favor, while they remain emotionally distant or dismissive. The narcissist's need for control and superiority often leads them to belittle, criticize, or invalidate others. If you have an opinion or perspective that contradicts theirs, they may react with disdain or condescension, making you feel as though your views are insignificant. They may take credit for your accomplishments or diminish your achievements, often framing themselves as the driving force behind any success. This behavior is a way for them to maintain their sense of superiority and ensure that you never feel as though you are on equal footing. Over time, this can erode your confidence, making you question your abilities and value. Being in a relationship with a narcissist can feel like an emotional roller coaster. One moment they may shower you with attention, and the next they may ignore or criticize you. This unpredictable behavior can create a sense of uncertainty and anxiety as you never know where you stand with them. Narcissists often leave people feeling emotionally exhausted because they demand constant validation and attention while offering little in return. Their relationships are imbalanced as they focus on taking rather than giving. They may dismiss your concerns or make you feel as though you are overreacting, further perpetuating their control over the dynamic. Narcissists are often unable to form genuine, reciprocal relationships because they are primarily concerned with what they can get from others. They may appear charming and charismatic on the surface, but their relationships are hollow and self-serving. If you are involved with a narcissist, you may eventually realize that the relationship is not based on mutual care, but rather on their need to maintain a sense of power and control. Their emotional manipulations, lack of empathy, and inability to truly connect can leave you feeling empty, unimportant, and emotionally drained. Cutting ties with a narcissist is essential for preserving your mental and emotional health. Their behavior, while often subtle and insidious, can have a profound impact on your sense of self-worth and emotional stability. By distancing yourself from them, you regain control over your own narrative and can focus on building relationships that are based on mutual respect, care, and emotional reciprocity. It is important to recognize that a narcissist will rarely change, as their behavior is rooted in their need for validation and control, and it is up to you to protect yourself from their toxic influence. Users of drugs or alcohol often lead lives that are deeply affected by their addictions, and their relationships with others are frequently strained by the consequences of their behavior. These individuals might seem to be in a constant cycle of temporary highs followed by periods of lows, but this cycle inevitably causes emotional and physical harm not only to themselves but also to those around them. Addiction to substances can completely alter a person's personality, behavior, and priorities, leaving them incapable of forming healthy, supportive relationships. The pull of their dependency typically overrides everything else in their life, including commitments, promises, and responsibilities, making it difficult to maintain a stable and fulfilling relationship with them. The first issue with being around people who are addicted to drugs or alcohol is that their actions are often unpredictable and unreliable. Addiction rewires the brain in such a way that the need for the substance becomes the primary focus. People who are struggling with addiction often prioritize getting their next fix over everything else, including work, relationships, and personal well-being. This means that any plans or promises made to others often fall by the wayside as the addict's focus is diverted. You may find yourself waiting for them to follow through on commitments, only to be let down repeatedly as they choose their addiction over honoring their word. This behavior can cause frustration, disappointment, and feelings of betrayal, particularly when it comes from people you care about. Addiction also tends to breed deceit and dishonesty. To fuel their addiction, individuals often lie about their behavior, whereabouts, or the severity of their substance use. They may conceal how much they are drinking or using, downplay the consequences of their actions, or even blame others for their problems. This dishonesty becomes a destructive force in relationships as trust erodes and suspicions grow. It's challenging to maintain a healthy relationship with someone who is constantly hiding the truth, especially when the deception is aimed at protecting their addiction. Over time, this dishonesty wears away at the foundation of any relationship, leaving it unstable and fraught with tension. Another painful reality of being in a relationship with someone addicted to drugs or alcohol is the emotional toll it takes on you. Often, the addict's behavior shifts from one of seeking pleasure or escaping reality to one of emotional volatility. They may be irritable, distant, or overly emotional, swinging between extremes. You might feel like you are walking on eggshells, never knowing what version of them you will encounter on any given day. One moment they might be apologetic or remorseful for their actions, and the next they may lash out in anger or withdraw completely. This inconsistency makes it difficult to feel secure in the relationship, as you never know when the next emotional upheaval will occur. Over time, this unpredictability can lead to emotional exhaustion, leaving you drained and emotionally unfulfilled. Additionally, the addict's behavior can negatively impact your mental health, as their issues often spill over into your life. You may find yourself constantly worrying about them, feeling anxious about their well-being, or trying to protect them from the consequences of their actions. The stress of dealing with someone's addiction can take a toll on your own emotional stability, leading to feelings of anxiety, depression, or helplessness. You might become caught in a cycle of trying to fix them, but this is rarely effective, as the individual must choose to seek help and work on their recovery for lasting change to occur. The more you attempt to carry the emotional weight of their addiction, the more you may lose yourself in the process. People struggling with addiction often struggle with self-worth and guilt, which can lead to further problems in relationships. They may feel ashamed of their behavior but find it difficult to stop using, which creates a cycle of self-loathing and frustration. They may become defensive when confronted, unable or unwilling to acknowledge the harm their addiction is causing. This can create an environment where difficult conversations are avoided, leaving important issues unaddressed and unresolved. As a result, those around them may begin to feel as though their needs and concerns are being ignored or trivialized, contributing to further emotional distance. Finally, addiction can cause a breakdown in the ability to maintain healthy boundaries. People who are struggling with substance abuse often find themselves in a cycle of dependency on others, whether it be financial, emotional, or logistical. They might ask for money to feed their habit, lean on others for emotional support without reciprocating, or fail to respect personal space and boundaries. This constant need for help can drain the people around them, leaving them feeling taken advantage of and unsupported. As boundaries are crossed repeatedly, resentment builds and relationships begin to deteriorate. The difficulty with being in a relationship with someone addicted to drugs or alcohol is that they are often unable to offer the emotional support and stability needed for a healthy, balanced relationship. Their focus remains on the substance they are dependent on, and any relationship they are involved in becomes secondary. The constant cycle of highs and lows, deceit, emotional turmoil, and instability can be emotionally devastating for the people who care about them. For your own emotional health and well-being, it is sometimes necessary to distance yourself from someone who is actively using drugs or alcohol and cannot break free from their addiction. Only when the individual recognizes their need for change and seeks help can the possibility of rebuilding a healthy relationship emerge. Until that time, continuing to invest in the relationship may only result in more harm to both parties. People who constantly blame others for their problems or shortcomings often create an environment of negativity and defensiveness. They refuse to take accountability for their actions or decisions, instead shifting the responsibility onto those around them. This kind of behavior can be draining and toxic as it prevents growth, fosters resentment, and perpetuates a cycle of conflict. When someone never takes ownership of their actions, it becomes impossible to have a constructive relationship with them, because any issue or disagreement is always someone else's fault. At the heart of this behavior is a lack of self-awareness and emotional maturity. Individuals who blame others are often unable or unwilling to reflect on their own actions or recognize the role they play in creating their circumstances. They may be quick to point fingers, accuse others, or make excuses, but they rarely examine their own behavior or acknowledge how their choices contribute to their problems. This inability to self-reflect makes it difficult for them to learn from mistakes or make positive changes in their life. Instead of growing and evolving, they remain stuck in a pattern of blaming others, never taking responsibility for their own role in the situation. Blaming others can also be a defense mechanism. When people feel vulnerable or threatened, they may deflect attention from their own perceived shortcomings by projecting blame onto others. Instead of facing their own insecurities or failures, they externalize the issue, making it someone else's problem to solve. This defense mechanism allows them to avoid feelings of guilt, shame, or inadequacy, but it also prevents them from confronting the deeper issues at play. By refusing to acknowledge their part in a problem, they avoid the discomfort of self-reflection and personal growth. One of the most damaging aspects of being around people who constantly blame others is the emotional toll it takes on those who are forced to absorb their blame. Constantly being blamed for things you didn't do, or for situations you have no control over, can lead to frustration, confusion, and a sense of helplessness. You may begin to feel as though no matter how hard you try, nothing you do will ever be good enough because the person will always find something to blame you for. Over time, this can erode your self-esteem, making you question your own worth and sense of responsibility. Furthermore, people who blame others often lack the ability to take constructive criticism. When they do make mistakes or face difficulties, they may react defensively rather than accepting feedback that could help them improve. Instead of using criticism as an opportunity for growth, they see it as an attack, which only reinforces their tendency to externalize blame. This makes it difficult to have honest, open conversations with them, as any attempt to discuss issues is met with resistance or accusations. The refusal to take responsibility also creates an unhealthy power dynamic in relationships. When someone always blames others, it places the burden of guilt and responsibility on the people around them, making it difficult to establish an equal, respectful partnership. The person who is constantly blamed might feel powerless and trapped, unable to break free from the cycle of blame. This imbalance can lead to resentment, as the person who is unfairly blamed may feel as though they are shouldering the emotional weight of the relationship, while the other person refuses to do their part. Over time, this pattern of blaming others can create a toxic environment that stifles communication and growth. When individuals are unable to take responsibility for their actions, there is no opportunity for reconciliation or improvement. Issues remain unresolved, and the same problems resurface repeatedly, because no one is willing to make the changes necessary to move forward. This creates a stagnant, negative atmosphere where blame becomes the default response to any challenge rather than seeking solutions or taking steps toward personal growth. People who refuse to take responsibility also tend to be unreliable and untrustworthy. When they constantly shift blame onto others, it becomes clear that they are not willing to be accountable for their commitments or obligations. This lack of reliability can have serious consequences, especially in relationships where trust and dependability are key. If someone is unwilling to own up to their actions or promises, it becomes increasingly difficult to trust them with important responsibilities or decisions. The constant cycle of blame and avoidance undermines the trust necessary for a healthy, functioning relationship. In relationships, mutual respect, accountability, and open communication are essential for growth and understanding. When someone consistently refuses to take responsibility, it prevents any real progress from being made. It becomes an emotionally exhausting cycle of blame, defensiveness, and stagnation. To maintain a healthy sense of self-worth and emotional balance, it's crucial to distance yourself from individuals who continually deflect responsibility and refuse to engage in honest self-reflection. People who cannot take accountability will ultimately limit your ability to grow and flourish, both personally and relationally. In conclusion, the relationships we cultivate in life play a significant role in shaping our emotional, mental, and overall well-being. Whether it's the draining influence of toxic people, the manipulation of narcissists, or the instability created by addicts, these individuals can undermine our growth and diminish our sense of self. While it's important to show empathy and support for those struggling, it's equally essential to recognize when a relationship is becoming harmful to our own mental health. Identifying and distancing ourselves from individuals who refuse to take responsibility, engage in destructive behaviors, or perpetuate negativity is crucial to maintaining a healthy and balanced life. By setting boundaries and cutting out these toxic influences, we create the space necessary to nurture relationships that are grounded in mutual respect, trust, and support. Ultimately, prioritizing your emotional well-being allows you to build a stronger, more fulfilling life, free from the constraints of toxic and unproductive connections.